So, welcome to today's live episode of Everyday Alex. Seemed to work yesterday, so I figured I'd have another go today. I like the interaction. It's nice to have. It's nice to sort of feel other people sort of in the field as we're doing it. It's nice to have your questions as well. So I want to talk a little bit about today's topic, but then I'd love to, again, for you guys to post questions on YouTube in the chat. And also if you're watching on Instagram, you can also post on Instagram as well. Today I wanted to talk a bit about learning to let go, something that I think is particularly important in the sort of current situation that we will find ourselves in. I think particularly where people feel either an increase in health anxiety or a sort of decrease in sort of personal space. If we've been used to being able to prioritize the healing journey and having the space to do that, and suddenly you're finding there's lots of people sort of in your physical space, but also people kind of reaching out, wanting to be in contact, and just sort of how to encourage your own letting go and your own healing. Because without going into a whole kind of piece of context here, being in a healing state is critical to healing from any chronic illness, but particularly with fatigue related conditions. So the first thing that I would say is the kind of clue is in the title. It's learning to let go. It's something that we learn how to do. It's a practice, and for some of us, it's a challenging practice. It's something that you really have to work at, and it's something that. So I'm just making sure that the Instagram video is working. I don't know if I'm making it. Hang on, sorry guys, I'm watching on YouTube. Let me just try this again. That looks better. So yeah, we're live on Instagram now as well. So just for people that have just joined on Instagram, I was just saying that we're talking about learning to let go, and it's a practice, and it's something that many of us have been learning and have mastered the opposite. What we've mastered is being wired, being adrenalized, going into a kind of achiever pattern, doing pattern. And we've got good at doing and going into a stress state because we've trained ourselves to do that. When it comes to learning to let go, we have to prioritize that as a practice. We have to commit to that as a practice. And knowing that we should do it, knowing that we need to do it, knowing that we feel better when we do it, none of that actually makes any difference. It's the action that matters. It's the actual practices of learning to let go. Part of that may be as simple as taking 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a few times in the day to do a mini meditation, to actually physically rest, to sort of lie down and rest your body. And the more that one does that, it becomes a skill. And it's a little bit like learning to ride a bike. It's a skill that once you've got, that you've got available. I remember in the years that I had ME, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and I trained myself to be able to get my body into a healing state. And it's something that I got better at doing. And it's something that, many, many years later, I still am able to relatively quickly, when I choose to calm and switch off my nervous system, perhaps not always, but in the vast majority of situations, able to switch my body into a healing state. Part of what we're doing there is it is a move from being in the mind being focused, being active, to kind of concentrating on a certain driving an outcome, to shifting from the mind into the body. And that is not what I think what's often challenging for people is that is not an act of doing, it's an act of surrender. And it's learning to let go. That's why this video is called Learning to Let Go. It's learning to surrender the pushing and the efforting of the mind to be able to relax and come into the body. Things that can help that are working with the breath, feeling the breath, deepening the breath, using the breath as a source of focus and meditation. That will help. Sometimes moving the body will really help, be that through yoga, Pilates, going for a walk, but actually moving the body as a way to support coming into the body. It's ultimately learning to surrender. And it's learning that rather than meeting the world from the kind of place of our egoic mind and our doing mind, it's learning to surrender and allow ourselves to be held by our body, by the ground, by the universe ultimately. And there's something that happens that the more that we do that, and something that I've talked about in a number of times in other videos, just like disconnection feeds disconnection, the more disconnected we get, the more we tend to choose habits and behaviors that further disconnect us. The same is true with connection. The more connected we become, the better we start to feel in that connection. And the more we start to choose and prioritize more habits and more things, which will support and invite more connection. And so often the hardest thing is to get started. If we're in a sort of wired, stimulated state, and we realize that we need to let go, we need to calm our system, we need to come more into our body, the times that we most need to make that shift are the times that we least feel like doing it. In fact, if we feel a significant resistance to letting go, like we feel like there's a part of us that just doesn't want to, wants to avoid it, wants to distract ourselves, that's a really good clue that this is the time that we need to make that shift. This is the time that we need to let go. So in that moment, what it takes is discipline. And this is sort of the irony or the kind of paradox of this. The letting go and the surrender takes often a commitment and a discipline to make that happen. Like we get started with the commitment and the discipline that we decide I need to calm my mind, I need to come into my body, I need to let go. So we start with the effort and the discipline, and that's what then creates the foundation. That's what then allows something else to happen. And this is where commitment and surrender are both important. The commitment to the practice of letting go and realizing we need to learn to let go. It's a practice of letting go. But then in that moment, it's the surrender to allow something else to happen. So I'd love to hear in the comments, what do you find helps you let go? What are the practices? What are the environments? What are the things? Any questions that you have about this? And also any questions that you have about anything else? I'm happy to open this up a little bit to a sort of broader Q&A as well. I've made the same mistake as I made yesterday, that the YouTube questions show up in exactly the same place that the bracket that's holding my phone does. I'm going to move that across. So Fiona says, when I read a book to zone out for a while, it helps to calm me, but am I really disconnecting from the body and dwelling in the mind or imagination? So it's a good question, Fiona. And what I would say is it depends. So it's possible that you're reading a book and in the process of doing that, you're interrupting the sort of busy, active mind and you're settling the mind, and then your body can relax and surrender and let go in the process. But it's also possible that your body is staying in the state of being wired and your mind is sort of going elsewhere. You're distracting your mind whilst your body is still staying in a wired and stressed state. So this is where a certain level of self-awareness and self-insight becomes important. Like, So like checking in with your body and going, one of the things we do in the Reset program, which is my online coaching program, which will launch again next month. One of the practices I get people to do is on multiple times through the day for a period of a few days, to track where their nervous system is. So you start to build the awareness that you can see the trends of when you go into a wired state, perhaps when you go into a kind of shutdown state, when you're in a calm state, and you start to get more clarity on what's influencing that. So it might be that you read a book and your whole system surrenders and relaxes. Might be that's not the case. It distracts your mind. What you might find helpful is before you read, you might do a guided visualization or relaxation, or just do some breathing exercises, do a mini meditation. So you actively work to calm your system, and then you're reading from that place. Might be you read for a bit and then you stop and you sort of check in and go, where is my nervous system right now? Am I in a stress state or am I in a healing state? I'm going to see if I can move. It's literally, it's like the arm that's holding my phone for Instagram literally is right in the way. So I'm going to move this over here. That's better. Rachel says, totally agree, Alex. I'm finding basic Qigong really helpful. I think that's any kind of moving practice, be it yoga, be it Pilates, be it Qigong, be it Tai Chi. And I think people have different preferences for, just for what they prefer. But any of those practices that allow you to just feel your body and come into your body will really help you, I think, doing that. On Instagram, CFSME Sleepyhead says, baking allows me to let go of everything that I'm feeling. I get totally lost in it. I sometimes spend time doing breathing exercises while I'm mixing. Yeah, I think for some people, cooking is a really great way to come into the body. And for other people like me, I'm not sure it has the opposite effect, but it's not something necessarily invites that. What I do find is if I cook and I put music on and I sort of go into the vibe of the music, that's something that I definitely find helps. And Fabian says, meditation, yoga, deep breathing, walking in nature, walking barefoot in the grass or on the beach, body scan, relaxation, hypnosis, feeling the weight of my body in my legs and my feet, all helpful. That's a good long list. And there's definitely some great things in there. Rachel on YouTube says, totally agree, Alex. I've done that one. Kathy says, I love doing relaxing meditations that use guided imagery. My favorite is the Honest Guys. Yep, I think these days there's so much great stuff on YouTube, there's various podcasts, there's various apps that are out there. I've got a bunch on my YouTube channel. I've done some of the Mindful Mondays, if you like those guided meditations. Charlotte says, I find having a routine really helpful, doing the same relaxation things at regular times throughout the day. I feel my body then recognizes it's time to relax very quickly. Yeah, I think there is a definite correlation between having a consistency of when you do certain practices. And that consistency is like, and I mean consistency in terms of time and consistency, that for the nervous system has a sort of reassuring effect. It's like the nervous system knows it's coming and sort of can be calmer and feel more relaxed in the sort of anticipation that it knows that's coming. And that's one of the reasons why having a consistent time that you commit to doing practices and being consistent with those practices can be really helpful. Journey with Jody says, I love the Calm app and imagery meditations. I think I need to make a consistent routine though, as it can sometimes get lost in the stress right now. Yeah, Calm app's good. Headspace is another good meditation app. I think it is particularly challenging right now to if particularly you've got children at home or you're having to navigate some of the changes in life at the moment. I think one of the things that's most helpful in situations like this is to know that you will have days or times that you aren't able to do the practice. So your ability to get back on the wagon when you've kind of fallen off is a really kind of powerful muscle to work out. because then it doesn't matter if you miss a day or you miss a couple of days. Whereas if our sort of pattern is a kind of perfectionist, all or nothing pattern, as soon as we've missed a day, we failed and we sort of give up, and then it's just sort of not happening anymore. So if we can know that we can miss a day or miss a few days and still get back and do the practice, then that's I think a much more empowering place for us to be able to come from. So I'll take a few more questions, comments. I'm going to try and, yesterday's session ran sort of 30 minutes. I think what I'd like to do is keep them a little bit shorter, but I might aim to another one tomorrow. And so we can be, I think, rather than these big, long, overwhelming sessions, do them a bit more regularly, but keep them a bit shorter. CFS Semi Sleepyhead on Instagram says, writing has really helped me. I feel like I'm physically getting all my emotions out through my words. I certainly find that as well. One of my most, not always when you've got a book deadline and you're sort of under pressure, but generally speaking, one of my most pleasurable things is sort of late at night, putting on music that I like listening to and writing and using it as a way of kind of expressing and digesting. So I find that a very helpful and kind of emotionally connecting process. So yeah, just final one for today. Fiona on YouTube says, I have lots of body symptoms, which makes coming into the body a little stressful. Yes, that can be challenging. One of the things that we focus on a lot in, for example, the Reset program is learning to shift our relationship to those symptoms. So if we come into those symptoms and we become reactive and angry and frustrated, it sort of perpetuates that cycle. It sort of perpetuates that cycle, and learning to shift our relationship and be more at peace with, and that often, well, at least it changes how we feel towards those things, and often those symptoms will shift or change in response to that as well. So I hope people enjoyed today's Everyday Alex. I'll think of a topic for tomorrow. I haven't got one planned right now. Yeah, I think we'll aim for 6 o'clock again tomorrow. I think we'll do some more of these next week. I like playing with different formats, and I'm liking the sort of interaction. It's easier as well for me to schedule a consistent time while sort of isolated in the house where there's nothing else happening. In my sort of London life, there's so many things in my diary, it gets a bit trickier sometimes to have a consistent time. So whilst I've got a bit more flexibility, I think we'll continue doing some more of these. So thank you, everyone. I hope that's been helpful. And I will aim to do, we'll do the same thing tomorrow, and then we'll maybe do a few of these next week as well. Bye-bye for now. Thanks for watching.